So hello, I'm Lynn McCann from Reach Out ASC, and we host these workshops on a regular basis. We do it in partnership with our online training called the Ability Bridge, which is recorded and people can access in their own time. So welcome to you if you're an Ability Bridge member, or if you're just somebody who's seen this online and thought, I'll come and see what that's all about. You're very, very welcome. As the summer holidays are imminent, and I know in Scotland particularly, they've already finished. There's lots of parents, particularly those who have autistic or children with SEND, who are thinking, well, what are we going to do with this time, particularly when, you know, the school day is so structured and familiar, and that unfamiliarity of being at home every day can be quite exhausting and for everybody, but also, well, what do we do? We also know that lots of children prefer it when they're at home as well. But there's loads of wonderful things that we can do with our children, getting involved in sensory play and play ideas. And if we get some nice weather, even go outdoors and explore things. So there's no one thing that's right for everybody, but Georgina has written a great couple of books. I'm going to let her introduce herself in a moment, which is why I've asked her to come and join us. And at the end, I'm going to share some resources that we've got that families can use and enjoy as well. But I just want to introduce, we're setting this up for free, and I want to kind of encourage or invite people to support a charity that we support. So there's a young man I've known since he was 3. He has ADHD, and when I first met him, he was wild, and that's what he says. So I'm allowed to use that. He's now 35, and 10 years ago, he did something very impulsive and moved to the Philippines to kind of help set up a little charity. And it was using football to engage the kids who were on the streets. So the kids in the slums on the outskirts of Manila, at a place called Batangas. And he now, 10 years on, has this great, amazing charity that really supports children who are on the streets, who have had, you know, really poor backgrounds and lives, and they've got an education program, they've got a football coaching program, which is open to boys and to girls, and they even have a team playing in the Street Children World Cup, which is held around the world, which I bet you didn't even know that was a thing, which is amazing. So Kirsten's put the link in the chat box. He's called Roy. He's currently over in the UK for his mum's 60th birthday, and we had a great chat the other day. And you know, if you've got a chance, a couple of pounds to kind of put towards helping these kids, it would be amazing. So thank you very much. But I'm going to stop talking. Just one thing, people often say, well, where's your accent from? I'm in Lancashire, in the middle of Lancashire, just south of Preston, but Georgina's in a very different place, so I'm going to pass over. And Georgina, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, yes, thank you, Lynn. So I'm Georgina Durrant. I'm in Cheshire, so I'm across the way from you, a bit rainier over here. I'm a former teacher, former SENCO and tutor for children with special educational needs. I'm also the founder of a website called the SEN Resources Blog, which is a website full of free advice, activities, recommended resources for parents and teachers of children with special educational needs and disabilities. There's also, during lockdown, I did loads of videos. I did a video every single day for children with special educational needs of like play-based activities, and they're all on my website as well as on the YouTube channel. I'm author of 2 books, and I've got them here because Lynn told me to do this. So they're my 2 books, 100 Ways Your Child Can Learn Through Play and How to Boost Reading and Writing Through Play. And both of them are designed for parents and teachers of children with special educational needs and disabilities. So they're really inclusive. In doing so, I suppose some people have said that they can be used for any child, because by making them inclusive of children with special educational needs and disabilities, they're in fact made for everybody, but they are made really for children with special educational needs and disabilities. That was the plan behind them. So what I'm doing today, what Lynn's got me on to do, is to share some play-based activities for the summer holidays, particularly sort of sensory-based activities. I think we said, Lynn, didn't we? Might be an idea, but I'll share lots of different ones. And the reason I'm so passionate about play for children with special educational needs is because I think it's just so important is play. And I think children do as well. I think they value it and think it's very, very important. And in my experience as a teacher, SENCO and a mum, I think it's the most wonderful way for children to learn and be happy and have fun. And I think there's a lot of guilt around play sometimes as parents in the summer holidays. If our child isn't going to the zoo, isn't going to a water park, isn't going abroad on a holiday, we can feel a little bit, I don't know, like we look on Instagram or we look on Facebook and we see these other parents doing these amazing things, and you think, oh, mine's just playing in the playroom, or mine's just spent the morning outside in the garden, or mine's actually just sat on the iPad all day, and you feel a bit guilty. And I really want to empower parents to realise that play is often what children want to do, and you're not actually doing a bad job, you're doing a brilliant job. I actually got my own children the other day to write down what they wanted to do over the summer holidays, expecting that they would write down, like, I want to go to the zoo, I want to go, I don't know, to Florida or something ridiculous like that. And you know what they wrote? They wrote down, I want to go to the library, I want to go to the park, I want to have a chill day, and I want to play on the iPad. And they could have written down anything. I didn't say these are what, you know, these are the limitations, this is the budget. I just said, just write down what you want to do. And that's what they wanted to do. So I think we build summer holidays up to be this huge thing that we've got to entertain our children. We've got to somehow manage to juggle work. We've got to manage other siblings. We've got to manage the house. We've got to manage everything, and somehow make this summer holiday the best thing the children have ever had in their lives. When actually all they want to do is chill and play. And just, if you think back to our childhoods, I remember my parents would just send me out in the garden and I'd probably play with a frog. I'd probably find some sort of wildlife to play with, or like, I don't know, build a den with some sticks, or just, you know, I mean, like I think we've made them overcomplicated, and we need to bring it back to what children actually should be doing, which is playing. And in playing, they're actually developing a whole range of skills. They're not losing any skills, or not, you know, they're developing so much whilst they're playing. It's how children learn. You know, they can develop fine motor skills, gross motor skills, they can be developing their numeracy, their literacy, their IT skills. There's so much they're developing whilst they're playing. And yeah, it's what they want to be doing. So yes, I'd really like to empower parents to realise that your children are never just playing. Stop feeling guilty, you're doing a brilliant job. So the ideas I'll be sharing, some of them are from my book. I can't share too many from my book, otherwise I get into with my publishers. So some are from my website, some are from my YouTube channel, and some are just from my brain. But please remember, you know your child way better than I do, because I don't know them at all. I've never met them. So please, don't, I won't be offended. I won't know, and I won't be offended if you completely change some of the activities to suit your child better. Make it so they're interested in it. I like to explain that my books are sort of like a recipe book for play. And if you were like baking some cupcakes with children and they absolutely hated sultanas, you wouldn't just plow on and put sultanas in because the recipe book said it's got to have sultanas. You'd think, well, my child doesn't like sultanas, so I'm going to skip the sultanas and put some chocolate chips in. And I want you to do the same with any like play-based activities, even, you know, ones you found on the internet, ones you found in my book, wherever you find these activities. Don't just do it because it says so in the instructions. Change it, make it suit your child, make them, it's for them to enjoy, so make it suit them. Keep the bits that you like, throw out the bits you don't like, and make it better for your child. And sometimes it doesn't work. Like, there are so many activities I've tried with different children that do not work. Don't feel disappointed, it's not your fault. Just try something else.
Sorry, no, it's all right. I love all that. And I was thinking particularly with autistic children that often the first time you introduce something new, it's overwhelming because they don't know what it is. So actually don't be afraid to have something out, or to kind of show them what to do and then leave it a few days for them to process what that is and explore. And just as an aside, my children are grown up now, but in the summer holidays, one of the favourite things of my son was he liked playing with his army and kind of acting out battles on my living room floor. So he would pray for rainy days so he could just sit and just set out his army and play his strategy of this battle that was going on, and hours and hours and hours. And I was thinking, oh, it's a rainy day, you're going to be bored, but actually children have their own imaginations and things they want to play through, don't they? I'm going to ask you to start with just kind of regular things you can do on a regular day, things that might you just take opportunities or set up and just let your children do. Do you want to have a go at that first?
So I think like for just regular days, sometimes, like you say, setting something up almost like I think they use them in like the early years in reception and stuff as like an invitation to play is the phrase I've seen a few times, but basically setting something up that they can have a go with, but there's no pressure on. So often imaginative play activities are great for this. Now, I know sometimes some children can struggle with imaginative play and not enjoy it, but if you provide a lot of structure and if you explain it, they can be really fun. So one activity I like to do is post offices. So this can literally take all day as well if you wanted it to, if they get really into it, or all week. We've played it for a long time. So you would just, none of these ideas are going to cost you a fortune either. I wrote the book when it was lockdown, so everything had to be in my cupboard to actually produce, because I couldn't go to the shops because all the shops it was when all the only essential shops were closed and they didn't have any like craft things to go and get. So all of these literally will be in your cupboard, all the equipment. So yeah, post offices, just get like a cereal box, cut out a hole, get them to paint it with some red paint. You could watch some YouTube videos, as long as you check them, about like what post offices look like, what post box look like. You could even walk to the post office and look at some post boxes together, or take some photos of them. You can really extend these things to make them into a bigger activity than it is. And then basically they're just writing some letters and putting them into the post box. So, or they're doing some parcels and putting them into the post box. You could put out some bits of paper on a table. You could put some old cards on the table, make some little what's the word? What am I trying to say? Postcards. You can make some little postcards for them to have a go at, and just set them up and just see if they enjoy posting them in there. They could then go delivering them. We've played it where my husband's been working in the office, and my little one has written the letters and then taken them from me. Instead of me having to message him to say dinner's ready, she's written a letter, put it in the post box, then taken it out herself, and then walked over to the office and given it to him. And that's been really, really fun. And that can take quite a lot of the day up. They enjoy doing it, and they're developing their sort of writing and reading skills whilst they're playing, as well as some sort of social skills, because they're like having to go and have a chat and work out who to hand the letter to and all of that. So that can be a lovely one. Another really simple one that I like to do as well is using toys like cars and ramps. And that sounds like the most simple activity, but it can be brilliant. Often the simplest ones are the best. So really easy to set up. You just need some toy cars, and you don't even need ramps. You can just use a book and some building blocks maybe to make it so it's like at a ramp. And you're just getting some toy cars, some books, and you're letting them set them at different heights and seeing which ones go down the fastest. So you can extend this for older children. They could time it and see how fast the cars go down. You can even get a bit of science in there. You can be like, which one do we think is going to go? What's your prediction? Do we think the one that's the steepest is going to go the fastest, or the one that's not as steep is going to go as fast? And just have a little play with the ramps and seeing which ones go quicker and slower. And that can, again, playing like that, it can take they can take a few hours playing with that. Just let them keep going and try different cars, and they could even adapt the cars and stick little bits onto them to make them more streamlined and go faster. But I would always be led by the child and their interest, a bit like what Lynn was saying with her child and what they enjoy doing. If they don't like cars, you can change it into something they really enjoy and just sort of go with the flow of what they want to do. And you can just weave in some like skills in there and see if you can get them developing some skills whilst they're playing.
Sounds great, that, isn't it? And I think as well, if you've got a child who does like repetition, that can be really, really good. Yeah. And like, again, drawing on what you've just said, is if they're doing something else that's maybe not what you've set up, and they're doing something different, just join them in what they're doing. And I think one of the most beautiful things that, because autistic children that I work with will play differently maybe than what we think is typical play. I don't think there is such a thing as the children left to their own devices do their own way. But it's just joining your child in their play, but don't take things off them. Just get something that you can copy them and just change that relationship. And it can be really lovely when if they're lining things up, you line things up too. If they're doing something repetitive, join them in that. You will probably get bored before they do, I think. But again, you can take something they are doing and explore it and try something different. Now, some children don't like that, but some do, don't they? And love to find out different ways. So I think everyday things, I'm sure as well, have you got any ideas of things that people can do with, like everyday objects, using them in different ways? Like a typical thing is like getting the pans out of the kitchen and making them a drum kit. Good luck with that one.
That sounds really noisy for the summer holidays, but yeah, good fun. One nice one, one simple one is if you've got any old spaghetti, you know, when it falls, I'm sure your cupboards are all neater than mine, but in my cupboard in the kitchen where I keep pasta and spaghetti, there's always like old pieces of spaghetti at the back, like hard pieces of spaghetti. You get a piece of spaghetti and then you get some like Play-Doh or blue tack, and you stick the blue tack to the table and you put the piece of spaghetti standing upright. And then if you get some like honey hoops or Cheerios, and they've got to try and build a tower as fast as they can, but they've got to hoop them on, so they've got to stack them on the piece of spaghetti. But you've got to be really gentle because this piece of spaghetti can break, and you've got to try and get them all on and race each other. We've done that one a few times where you try and see who can get the tallest tower in a certain amount of time. Not all children enjoy competition, so you could just have it as a thing they do by themselves, but that one can be a nice, just what we're going to do on board. Oh, we'll just grab some spaghetti and have a little play. And it's great for fine motor because it's really fiddly, so it's developing those muscles in the hands and the fingers and the wrists that are really useful for learning to write and develop the handwriting skills as they get older. So that's one of my go-tos.
I think there's lots of art you can do with food as well, isn't there? That's what I was thinking of, developing that. Yeah, I mean, we've kind of we put a structure together, didn't we? And I think I'm sure we'll kind of dip in and out of all different ideas. But, you know, when we do have nice days, it's really nice to think, oh, we can get outside, isn't there? And people have different spaces outside. But what can people do maybe in their own garden area or yard area, and then in the maybe wider, like the local park or things like that? What do you know?
Yeah, I think this is really important because, and there's a lot of children, and in particular some children who are autistic, when you say, oh look, play in the garden or go into an outdoor space, they can feel a bit lost, like there's not the structure. And it can be the same at playtimes at school. I don't know if any of you have seen this, but it's like the structure of the school day, and then it's playtime. It's like, what do we do? There's no plan of what I'm supposed to do. Obviously not for all children, but some. And that lack of structure can make them not know what to do. And if you're not into sport as well, so in the garden, for example, if you're not into just kicking a football about, what do you do in the garden? You go out there and you're like, what do I do now? So I think it can be really helpful to come up with some like play-based activities, some ideas for children in the summer holidays to play in the garden. So then they've got some ideas of play when they're back at school as well, so they can use them, or when they're at the park with a friend, they've got some, like, it's not just about giving them things to do now, but some ideas that they can think of, I know what to do when I'm outside. I've got this plan of what we do in the park. I can think of what to do when I'm with my friends in an outdoor space. So lots of different activities you can do. One I really love is a nice sensory one as well, is using the hose pipe. I think the hose pipe is an underrated toy. I think it's absolutely brilliant. It should be used more often, as long as there's not a hose pipe ban in your area. But yeah, one of them I like is letter spray. So if you've got any like paving stones and some chalk, I know Aldi at the moment are selling chalk really, really cheap. You can get a big stack of it from there. But yeah, if you write down, if they're learning, I don't know, if you wanted them to develop their letter skills, so remembering which letters, or if you wanted them to develop their number recognition, or might be shapes or phonics or anything, but say it was letters, you could write some of the letters on the paving stones and then shout out a letter, so A, and then they've got to squirt it with the hose pipe, and then it magically disappears because chalk is wonderful and doesn't stay on paving stones for very long. So yeah, you can have great fun with putting these things down and then squirting them. Or if they're doing, like, I know some children really enjoy maths and enjoy like times tables. I know some children that are really, really into numbers and times tables. So you could do some games to do with that. So you could write down the answers to some times tables on the floor and then say the sum, and then they've got to squirt the correct answer and get rid of it using that. Or you can make it even simpler. You could do animals. They could have a great go at drawing their favourite animals all on the different paving stones, and then you give some clues for one of the animals and they've got to squirt it and get rid of it. So basically it's just getting to play with a hose pipe and squirting some chalk. I really enjoy that one.
I love that. I would do it in clothing you don't mind getting wet as well.
yeah, that would be a good idea. And on a hot day as well, it can be a useful one if you're feeling a bit hot and bothered.
And if it kind of goes into a waters fight, then even better. I think that's half the fun, isn't it?
Yeah, we've done it with water pistols as well. So if you've got any little inside of the hose pipe, you're using water pistols and you can squirt different things. So you could do it on, if you've got a wall that would be okay to put chalk on, you could do some drawings on there or something on there, and they've got to squirt off the correct answer with the hose pipes. which can be
I was
fun.
thinking with the chalks as well, you could also do like a little sensory circuit. You could make little like trails that they can follow, doing different actions and things around the yard or even down the street. I mean, I live in a cul-de-sac, and quite often the children are playing out there on a thing, and I've quite often seen them like make up little games together. But I think you could, with chalks, you could make yourself a little sensory trail, couldn't you, to follow and jump here in this box. And I suppose that's where things like hopscotch comes in, isn't it?
Yeah, these games are brilliant. Yeah, and I think a lot of these like traditional games are absolutely brilliant. You know, Grandmother's Footsteps and hopscotch and all of these, like What's the Time, Mr. Wolf, they've all got quite a lot of learning in them that I don't think I realised as a child. That you're actually, you know, you're learning to tell the time, you're learning to do number recognition, all sorts of things. So yeah, don't underestimate the power of the traditional games as well.
I think the British Library has a whole load of videos on these old-fashioned games. You could resurrect some in your, you know, in your own children, and maybe they'll go out and entertain everybody else's children in the street as well for the for the holidays. We used to make clubs when we were kids, and one of them, we used to we had a cafe club where we'd make lots of food out of newspaper and have a cafe on other things, and we had a running club one year where we'd just time each other running up and down the street. It went on for weeks. It was very entertaining, and I think that's one of the things we forget about children, isn't it, that they're actually entertained by what to us seem very simple things.
Yeah,
if they're in it and they're in the zone, then actually for them it's something great. So don't feel like you have to do something all singing or dancing, and these really simple, maybe old-fashioned things. I was thinking as well around you know, things on they love their iPads and the video games, which we'll come to later. But actually one of the things I've known somebody do is take the Mario Kart idea and put that in the garden. So they made a Mario Kart circuit around the garden, so the child then was able to pretend to be Mario and have to go over all the obstacles around the garden.
Oh, that's a brilliant
that kind of worked well as well.
Yeah, and I'd say if you're trying to do like a circuit or anything inside, masking tape is a brilliant one for making, if you haven't got any like tracks or any sort of, you know, play roads or anything like that. If you use masking tape on a solid floor, as long as it's all right to peel off, you can make the most amazing like train tracks and airports and like roads. You can make a whole city using masking tape on the floor. And that can be a really fun and, you know, budget friendly option if you're trying to recreate something you've seen on a game and you want to do it on like a solid floor. Or chalk outside, like we said.
I think actually, you know, again, we can spend a lot of money on toys and things, and children play with them for a little bit, and then they're kind of just in a corner, aren't they, somewhere? But actually rethinking about other things you can do with that same toy, or just, as you say, have a kit of masking tape, chalks, and see where you go with that, isn't it?
And sort of rotating the toys can be a good one as well. You know what you're saying about them often forgetting they've got certain toys and then bringing them back out again. Obviously, if a child is really loves a certain toy, don't get rid of that one and have that in the rotation. But other toys that they're not previously been as bothered about, having a bit of a rotation system over the summer holidays, perhaps each week just switching around what toys you've already got, or even with friends, if you know, saying, oh, we've been playing with this week, why don't you have this next week, and we'll swap with you and have this one this week. And then you've got different, often having just something novel, something different in the house can make them want to play more and less on their iPads and more actual physical playing.
That's an interesting one, isn't it? If you're getting together with a group of friends who have children the similar age, is actually to everybody bring a toy along and swap for the week. See how
for
that
some children it doesn't work. Like
no, it wouldn't.
Children, they can be too special, but for some toys perhaps that they literally don't know they've got anymore. They've been sat in a cupboard somewhere or in the garage, so they might be okay with. But yeah, I'd tread carefully.
Well, as you say, you've got to know your own children, haven't you?
Yeah,
so
definitely.
Is there anything else you can think of outside then that can be done?
A lot of my outside ones involve water. I do apologize. But another one is like a toy car wash. That one's really fun and purposeful as well if you've got dirty toys. So you can like add a bit of purpose to the plate, and you literally just need a washing up bowl, some bubbles, so some fairy washing up liquid or other washing up liquid is available. and like toy cars. And you can, look at some pictures before, talk to them what a car wash is, maybe even go to a car wash if you can, and then recreate it in the garden. So you've got your soapy water, you've got a sponge, cleaning the cars, setting them up, driving them around so they can line them up as they're coming to your car wash, and you're washing them and then putting them around and drying them or whatever. And that can be really, really fun and take a long time. And nice cooling, if we do get a heat wave, can be a lovely one to play with a bowl of some water and splash about a little bit. And with that, if they're not into toy cars, again, you can adapt it. So you could do like baby baths. So using toy dolls, you can wash them and put them in the bath and let them have a go at washing them and cleaning them, drying their hair and sorting them out, and then moving on to them. And it's nice and purposeful if you've got some dusty toys in a cupboard somewhere that you need cleaning anyway.
I think you're kind of really dipping into the sensory type play there, aren't you? That actually you can put anything in a bowl of soapy water if it's waterproof or isn't going to be ruined. So you can have good just playing with the texture and the feel of that slippiness in a way if that's what they like.
Yeah.
But playing in water and getting into a bowl, you could have an outdoor bath, couldn't you?
Absolutely.
If they like
not?
that.
Paddling pool, get them all in, get all the toys in there.
We are hoping when the weather improves at this point, aren't we?
Yes, I'm being optimistic. With a little bit of sun, but a huge black cloud here in Cheshire, so I don't think it's going to last long.
Yeah, so I think we kind of like ideas around sensory play, around making in sort of real life imaginatory play and things that are moving, so doing activities like assault courses and things like that would be good, aren't they? And sometimes just being allowed to just sit there and just experience the outdoors, isn't there? So there are children who are interested in nature and things. So have you got any ideas around things like that they can do outside?
Yeah, so I think one thing, especially if you're going on a walk, and I would say a walk is obviously inclusive of everyone, even children with disabilities as well, so it doesn't have to be physically walking, however you go on a family walk. But yeah, doing like a nature hunt can be really, really fun and so simple, and you can do it even if there's not that much nature around you. If you're in the middle of a city centre, you can still do it. It doesn't matter. You just get a sheet of paper and you just write down a few things that you're going to see. So make sure it's achievable. So you might think you're going to see a bird, a cat, somebody walking the dog. Often they're quite funny if you put people down for like somebody on their phone or somebody walking a dog, or I don't know, somebody wearing a hat. So you write all of these down with a little tick box at the side, and depending on the child's ability, they might be able to write down these themselves, or you might write them or draw them, however you want to adapt it for them. And then you literally just take the piece of paper, and kids love walking around with a piece of paper on it if you've got a clipboard, or even I've used a chopping board before. You can tie it on with a piece of string to a chopping board and walk around with the piece of paper on top if you haven't got one of the proper boards. But anyway, you walk around and then you go and see if you can see any of these things, and then just tick them off as you go around. And that can be a really fun one. But you can also adapt it to things like textures. So it could be things that you can to make it a bit more sensory. So it could be textures that you might feel on a walk. So obviously being careful with any plants that are poisonous and things like that. But can they find anything soft, or can they find anything rough? And then they've got to go and touch like a tree and be like, oh, I found the bark on this tree is really bumpy and rough. Oh, we'll tick that one off. Or, oh, I found this grass is really, really shiny. Have you felt this leaf? And then they can tick that one off. So you can look at textures. Or another one is sounds. So, and this one's really fun because it's actually quite calming, because once you really focus on your hearing, kind of zone out of everything else. So going for a walk and just thinking about what you can hear on the walk. So you could write down a few things that they might hear, like a bird song, a car beeping, I don't know, a baby crying, whatever you think you might hear in your local area. And then they've got to listen out, and once they hear them, tick them off. And that can be, nice and calming and relaxing, because they've got to really focus on what they can hear as they're walking around.
I found a great website that I've used in the past called Wildlife Watch. I've put the link in the chat box, and they have, in fact, I'll share my screen and show everybody. They've all got these identification sheets that you can download. Wow. So there's all sorts of other outdoor activities as well, but yeah, there they are. So you can look at animals, you can look at birds and butterflies, you can look at seashells. That's quite nice, isn't it? Seashore stuff and different things. So there's lots there for children to kind of get into if they like wildlife. And I know a lot of children who do. And I think if you go on the RSPB website, they've got bird song sounds as well. So again, getting your children to do a little bit of, look at that ladybird detective. I like that one. I think I might do that myself this summer. So there's loads on there, isn't there? And there's more even. So just, that's a great website to look at.
That's fantastic. I didn't know about that one, Lynn. That's great. I'm going to steal that.
So the idea is, isn't it, sharing these ideas? So there's lots that people can do outside, but there are rainy days that happen as well. So is there anything around kind of either weather or just generally we're stuck inside and we can't go out? Although actually going out in the rain is a sensory experience in itself. But what sort of things can we do when we're all in and we're all fractious because it's raining?
Yeah, I think like indoor sensory play, as long as I know messy play for a lot of people can be like, the house is messy enough in the summer holidays. But yeah, indoor sensory play can be lovely, especially when it's raining outside and you're like a bit stuck and might be feeling a little bit overstimulated because you don't know what to do and there's a lot of noise when everybody's inside. Can be lovely. One thing I saw, I think it was on social media that somebody had done, and they got some cereal, they put it in a blender, and they just blended the cereal down, and they basically made taste safe sand to play with inside, so it didn't matter if the child put it in the mouth because it was cereal. And they just hid some toys in it or whatever, and they've got to dig and find the toys. But they did loads of different sensory activities with it, but it was just using what looked like sand, but it wasn't. It was cereal, so it didn't matter that the child was eating it, which I thought was lovely. One thing I love to do is a biscuit construction site, and that one's in my book. And you give them lots of different biscuits, and they've got to try and make some buildings from it. So you could try and make a house using biscuits, and it's really fun to eat afterwards. So you could use your jammy dodgers or your ginger nuts or whatever to make the roof, and you can use some, I don't know, chocolate fingers. I'm making me hungry doing this. Chocolate fingers for the walls, and you could be really, give them loads of sugar. You could use like some chocolate spread as the cement in between the biscuit bricks and make a little house. That one's a really good fun one. And then you break it and knock it down as well, because it's a construction site. So you can have a tray with some biscuits, and they can have a go at gluing them together with the chocolates, obviously looking out for allergies and being careful there. But yeah, that one's a really fun one. Yeah, I think sensory play in particular would be my go-to. But also, like I said before about like masking tape and making tracks on the floor with those, that can be a really fun one. And I'm trying to think, another one that I like, and it's in my book, is using cocoa powder and stencils. So again, using masking tape. So you could make some shapes, whatever their favorite thing. Maybe they're into dinosaurs, maybe they're into trains, birds, whatever they're into at the moment. Minecraft. So and they have to try and draw the shape using masking tape onto a piece of paper, then get a sieve with some cocoa powder, and they go like that over the top. And then they take off masking tape, and ta-da, you've got a cocoa shape of whatever it was, and it smells delicious. So that can be a lovely one, and you're using not just their sort of touch senses, but you're using the smell as well, because it can be lovely, calming, and yeah, exciting activity having the smell of chocolate in the house. Can you tell I've not eaten my breakfast yet?
Oh gosh, it's making me feel hungry, that as well. I love the smell of chocolate and cocoa powder. You've made me remember actually about sensory stories. So if your child's got a real favourite story, to actually break it down into some small chunks, and for each chunk actually make a sensory experience. So for us it was going on a bear hunt. It's an old favourite, I know. However, we do it either in the house when it was raining, or when we go out. My children are now in their 20s, and if we go on a walk together, I always start, we're going on a bear hunt, and they go, oh mom, but I can sometimes cajole them to get involved. But I think any story that your child likes, whether it's Beast Quest or anything, you can kind of think, how could we make that a really nice experience sensory wise. And I was thinking about, we're going on a bear hunt, because when we did the squelchy mud, I made it with corn flour and cocoa powder. So the cocoa powder, if you put corn flour in water, it's a really strange texture. So you can either put things on top of it and it's really squelchy, but if you put cocoa powder in as well, you get this gorgeous smell and the colour of the mud. Oh, it's a dream. I loved that. But yeah, but I say that sensory stories are a wonderful way to work with SEN children, probably all children, to just choose what they really love a story and break it down, even if it's into 3 or 4 pieces and then just create a nice sensory experience for each part of the story, and then leave them to you can tell it with them, but if you have everything available, they can then go back to it and tell their own story to themselves, or to or back
I
to
think
you.
they're good for films as well, because often if a child's been watching a film and they get really into it, you know, and you've watched a film and they then want to be the character, and they've suddenly changed into, I don't know, whoever they've been watching, and they've decided that's them and they're going to be that for the day. Doing like sensory things for the different parts of the film can be nice. So thinking about, and you can talk about, oh, what was your favourite bit at the start, and let's do a sensory bit around that, and then going for it like that can work nice as well.
I think, again, depending on your child, but if a child's quite echolaic, so that they do repeat phrases and like to go over the text of and the content of a film or a program that they really like, you know, if they'll allow it and they'll go with it, you could play dress up and dress up as that character and get involved in that repeating of the you know, the script with them, and that could bring quite a lot of joy as well.
Yeah, and I suppose making the costumes as well, right? And like deciding what you've already got and how you can make them and what you can add to it. You can develop into a whole play thing, can't you, together, and be part of what they're interested in. Is lovely.
Yeah, and having a dressing up box anyway, some children hate it so because they've got sensory issues with textures anyway, but and clothing. But I think, you know, having something, and it doesn't have to be things that you buy from the supermarket, you know, it's sometimes just a piece of fabric they can use as a cape, or different textures of fabrics they can make dens out of as well. And den making is probably a good one, isn't it? Can hide away inside.
Yeah, you can also change dens into like sensory dens as well, can't you? So once they've then built it, you could put in some lights and you can put some music in there and make it into a lovely little safe space for them that they can enjoy if they want to go in.
If you wanted to kind of collect together a sensory box from household things, have you got any good ideas around that, things that can make sensory?
One thing I like, you know, those space blankets, those sort of like foil blankets, they're really good because you can put them on the floor and they feel really lovely. But you could use foil as well, I suppose, to have in there. But things around the house that you can use. Bubble wrap, love bubble wrap. Obviously all these things you've got to be a little bit careful with if it's plastic and they're not putting it out. But yeah, bubble wrap can be a brilliant one to play with, and there's loads of activities you can do with bubble wrap. I've got a few in my book where you like write things on the different bubbles and then they've got to pop them at the right time and stuff. So bubble wrap, loads of different things with different textures like you were saying. So if you've got some different fabrics, some offcuts of some fabric that they could have in the sensory little box, and be guided by them. They can help make it as well. I think often we don't have to do all these things before because there's no time, is there, like to make these things, especially when the kids are off school, like when often bedtimes get very, very late and can be difficult, and then they're up probably early waking us up in the morning, so you don't have often a lot of time to create these resources for your kids anyway. So getting them to have an idea and have a look around and say, what objects do we really like, what can we put in this box, let's make our own little sensory box together. So it could be like some slime that you've got, or it could be you might make that taste safe sand using some like Cheerios and some Weetabix or whatever, and blend it down so you've got some of that for them to play with if they wanted to. You could put in some different lights, or loads of different things. But I would say get them to do it with you. Don't give yourself too much of a job. Like all of these activities, you don't have to somehow manage to find an hour on an evening to set up the thing for the next day. Get them to help you do it as well. Don't give yourself another job, because I know a lot of parents are working over the summer holidays as well. So trying to juggle that whilst trying to create new activities can be really hard.
I think that's good, isn't it? If somebody else is going to be looking after your children, like a grandparent or family member, that actually some of these ideas you can help them get ready as well, so that they know things they can do with your child, because again, you know your child best, you know what they like, and giving them permission that they don't have to take them out on exciting things all the time, but actually familiarity, routine, regularity is often very comforting to our children. Some of them are really freaked out and overwhelmed by lots of new experiences, so these sort of play, very simple, at home, joining in and doing things are actually quite valuable for our children to recover. I mean, I think as well there's that time of recovery from school as well, the first couple of weeks at least, and then there's sometimes anxiety about going back to school as well. I say sometimes, I would say quite often. So the regular familiar things, just simple things that you're doing together around your house, can be really helpful. The next section we're going to have a look at is about holidays and going away from home. So we might have covered some of them on the outdoor play stuff, but when you go away on holiday, can you think of any things that will help maybe with the journey?
That's what I was going to say. Yeah. I think we covered all the ones. I was going to say, for like, if you're out and about on holiday, you can do some like the nature hunts can be really fun, or like, you know, the tick box one can be really fun. If you're going for a walk in a different environment, it can be really fun. But yeah, I think the biggest problem, and I know a lot of parents that I've supported have said the thing they find the hardest is when children have to sit still for a long period of time, and more because you feel the pressure yourself, like maybe on an aeroplane, maybe on a train, in a car journey. All of those can be the thing of nightmares, can't they? You're thinking, how are we going to get them to sit still? And also you want them to be happy. Like, it's hard. Like, you don't want them to not enjoy part of the holiday because they've got to sit still for a long period of time. And I've got a whole chapter in my book, in 100 Ways, called Sitting Still, for that exact reason. So it might be you're at a wedding and they've been invited to a wedding, you've got to somehow get them to stay quiet during the best man's speech, and you're thinking, I've got a child, how am I supposed to get them to sit still for this period of time? Or like, you're on a train or you're in a car or whatever, and you've got to think of some ways that you can keep them sitting still and happy, but also you can't take like a craft box with you or like a mountain of toys with you. So what are you going to do? I would say, first of all, don't, you know, the iPad is there for a reason. No one's going to judge you. Like, please don't think that anyone is judging you for having an iPad or a phone with a video clip on or a little game for them to play. If a parent is looking at you, they're probably thinking, why didn't I bring mine? Because that's a really good idea for this journey and I'm struggling. So please don't feel, oh gosh, I've got the iPad out again. If it's helping keep them calm and happy and enjoying the journey and helping you feel less stressed during that period of time, then it's brilliant. And iPad games often can be fantastic. There's so many educational ones on there. Please don't feel guilty about that, because I know lots of people do, and I would hate for people to be feeling that way. But yeah, there's lots of other activities you can do whilst you're sitting still. You can do, one I love to do is similar to the nature hunt one, where you're listening to things, but like a bingo card. So you get a piece of paper, and say you sat on an aeroplane, you could write down together things you might think you're going to hear on the aeroplane. So it could be somebody, you might be able to hear the pilot's announcement, you might be able to hear somebody talking, you might hear somebody, a baby crying, whatever, all of these things, and you write them on a bingo card, and you both make your own cards with your own ideas of things you're going to hear, and then you just sit there and you listen and you tick off when you hear them and see who wins. And that can be really, really fun. And you can do it in a cafe, you can do it at a wedding. Sometimes it can be, if your child's got a good sense of humor, which children often do, especially older children, you can put some funny ones down there. So, you know, somebody arguing, you might be able to hear somebody arguing, you could tick that off, or somebody laughing, or loads of different sounds that you might hear, and then ticking them off while she's sat there can be quite fun. And it's calming again, because you're focusing just on your hearing, so you're just relaxing and sitting and listening and thinking what you can hear in that environment. And actually, it's enjoyable for us. I quite like playing that game, as you might guess by the way I'm talking about it. I quite like sitting there having a listen to things you can hear. You feel a bit naughty and a bit cheeky.
I know one child I used to work with loved looking at people's shoes. And so I was just thinking, oh gosh, I wish I'd had that idea then, because we could have put different coloured shoes or different types of shoes on a bingo card. So, if your child's interested in anything particularly, put that on, isn't it? If they notice things, if they like to, look at, people's ties or whatever, isn't it? It's just putting things that they can look out for on a bingo sheet. And don't forget your headphones, and you have a bag, isn't it? It's having a bag of sensory play things that that are going to help, and sensory calming things that are going to be helpful for your child. And I think if you are going on an aeroplane, don't forget to apply for your lanyard. You can, most planes and will have now, is it the sunshine, what is it? Is it the
sunshine band? Yeah. Sunshine lanyard. Sunshine lanyard. I was just going to say, Lynn, sorry to interrupt, is that my grandson is ADHD on the pathway, and I've just bought him a massive big sensory bag because he's going to Spain in next week, so I bought him a big sensory bag full of stuff, and I've advised his mum to contact the airport about the specialist support, help at the airport, so that he's not hanging around waiting to get on the plane, and they understand, because he does fidget a lot and move a lot. So
it's a sunflower lanyard, isn't it? That's
yeah.
it. Well, there's a boy we have an after school club. He's 12 and he is autistic and struggles a lot with things like, so they're going on a flight over to America, and they've got that lanyard, so it helps them through the airport, but also again, that permission to wear his headphones, have a phone with him with games on, but also sensory toys, because they're great, aren't they? So whatever allowance you've got, make sure you go and have a look at some sensory things to play with.
I was going to say as well, in the train stations, some of them have got calming spaces now, haven't they? I know the one at Crewe has got like a calming room, like a waiting room that's not with everybody else, and it's got like music. I haven't been in it yet, but I think it's got like calming music, and the lights are calming. It's just a different place to wait that's a bit less overstimulating. So having a look on different journeys of different things you can do, and some of the service stations, I believe, as well, might have some of spaces that are a bit more inclusive.
Yeah, and I think, sometimes for older children as well, is put in things like, I'm playing with mine now. I've got these two little, bracelets, but like hairbands and things like that on wrists that they can kind of fiddle and play with as well, can be helpful. Brilliant. Gosh, this time has gone amazing, but I kind of think, are there any other favourite play activities? This summer, the weather's going to be changeable. People are doing different things. What are your additional go-to things that people could do?
Well, there's one that I did with my own children and didn't work. It actually made them cry. But other people have done and said it was brilliant, but I made it and they were just like, what have you done? But that's getting, and I've seen it done a few times now on social media and stuff, but it's getting like dinosaur toys or any toy, freezing them overnight in some ice, and then they get to spend the morning trying to hack the toy out of ice, so they can do a bit of like paleontology almost, trying to get it out. My children were like, why on earth have you frozen our toys so we can't play with them anymore? What have you done, mummy? And they were just really upset, so I just spent the morning frantically with a kettle trying to defrost this ice to get the dinosaurs toys out. So I will never do that again, but apparently some children really enjoy that game, so that one can be a lovely one. But yeah, I felt so guilty about that game after I'd done it. Looking back, it's I realised I wasn't an absolutely awful mummy for doing that, but at the time I did. And please don't feel how I did if something goes wrong, because it does happen all the time to everybody. Another one, again dinosaur themed, is like if you've got some sand pits are brilliant. Even just in a tray, you don't have to have a full-on sand pit, you can just have a tray with some sand and hiding some things underneath. And if they're really into like dinosaurs, again, you can get some paintbrushes, get them like toothpicks or anything which can be their paleontology equipment, and they can have a go at trying to hide the dinosaurs under the sand, and they've got to try and excavate them out and try and find them. That can be a fun one. And also I'd say like crafts but with different things can be fun. So like I was saying about my cupboard, I'm giving all my secrets away today, my cupboard that's full of pasta that's gone off dry in the back of the cupboard, like using bits of like dried pasta to make like crafts can be really fun. So you can do the outline of, they could use some PVA glue on a piece of paper and do the outline of whatever they're really into at the moment, and then just sticking the pasta shapes on top of it and then leaving it to dry can make a lovely textured piece of artwork that looks a bit different, something perhaps they've not done before, feels a bit sensory, a bit more fun. And then you can even paint it. When you paint on top of pasta, that looks quite cool as well. So just having a few sort of different crafty ideas is quite nice in the back of your mind to do. I know not all children enjoy craft, but sometimes if you're using different household objects or something they're not expecting, the novelty aspect that can make it like, oh, actually I would quite like to do that. Another one is using a potato masher. Make sure you wash it afterwards, but dipping that in paint. If you get some paint, put it in like a little bowl or a plate, and then put the potato masher into the paint, then just printing it. It's a lovely chunky one if children's fine motor skills need a bit more help, because it's easy to hold on to, and you can make some really fun patterns with a potato masher. So yeah, just thinking outside the box, thinking what you've already got. Don't go out and buy stuff, there's no need. You've got loads of stuff at home, just use that and try and adapt it to different activities.
I know that lots of parents have to work, and so, you know, other people might be looking after the children are going to clubs and things like that. So the time that you do have is very precious, and you all might be tired. So choosing just one or two things that you just enjoy together and just is fun. And yes, it might be messy, or it might be just, you know, doing something and joining in with what they like to do. And if you've got a few children and they all like different things, that can be tricky as well. I'm just going to show people, as we kind of come to end, some resources that we've got on our website just to help you. So if I go back to the to this, so can you now see Reach Out ASC there on that? Okay, so in our resources session, it says downloadable resources. And one of the things that we find for parents coming up with the holidays really is starting with just a really simple visual timetable. So we made this in lockdown. It's called Our Day at Home. And basically it's just a plan for the day of what's happening in the morning, afternoon, evening. There are 3 columns. So if you've got 3 children, you could each have a column each, or you could just plan it that, you know, we're here and then we're there, and this is our free time. You can put your meal times on there, but it's just, and it does come with lots of pictures that you can use as well if you want to, and a page to fill in your own as well. So that's for free on our website. You can download that. So it might be that you spend, you know, your first part of the day, well, what are we going to do today? These are the fixed things we have to do, and there's some space, you know, free time, we'll just play and things like that, and that can be quite useful. There's lots of other free stuff on there as well. Do go to I'm going to bring it up, Georgina's website as well, where there's loads of stuff on, but that's just there for you. And also just thinking about sensory problems that some of our children might have in the summer. On the Sensory Integration Education website, there's a great summer sensory survival kit. Lots of ideas from food right up to you know, difficulties with putting sun cream on, and lots of ideas around that. So it's not play-based, it's more about the sensory challenges that go on through the summer. But again, it's just good to know that that's there, and when we send out the recording and that, we'll add all these, a sheet with all the links on. Okay, and finally, can I bring SEN resources up? What is this? Yeah, is this yours?
Yeah, yeah, that's mine. Yeah.
So I think I've gone into it. What do you want to say about your website? What do you want people to think about?
Probably if you go, I'm trying to think, I'm using my hand as if I'm going to touch the screen and click on it. If you go into maybe in the learning activities bit, there might be some play-based. Yeah, so you should find there's some different play-based, she says, should be some play-based activities if you click on there. So yeah, fine motor activities. Yeah, and there should be like loads of different ones. That one's fun. Salt dough. Oh yeah, do salt dough. Salt dough I thought was really hard to make and needed loads of ingredients, and I realized it's just like water, salt and flour, is it? I can't remember, but it says in there. But this, yeah, that's a really easy one to make. You can make so much out of salt dough, so that would be a great one. Yeah, loads of different activities that you can do on there.
And I think, yeah, there's just, because it is hard, isn't it, when you're sitting there thinking, oh, I don't know what to think about. And on your website, there is I like the science one, actually.
I used to teach
probably
science.
one I use a lot most, because I know so many children are interested in science. And so
yeah, water rockets, that's a fun one.
Just look at that, everybody. There's just so many great resources on there. So the things we've talked about and the things that you can find, and it's fantastic. So that's a great area for tinfoil, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah, use your tinfoil.
So please have a look at Georgina's website. There's loads of stuff on there, and can they get in touch with you on there as well, if you've got any?
Yeah, definitely on the contact bit somewhere on there. I need to do my website again, you know, when you look at it and you're like, oh, I want to rejig it.
Don't worry, that's one of my jobs for the holidays as well, website updates. So is anybody who here, sorry, I just wondered if anybody's got any questions, if you drop them in the chat box, because, you know, I always say, no matter what we say, there's always a but, isn't there? Because there's always something that might be a barrier to one of our children. Or if you've got a really great idea that you've tried with your your children. But if there's anything like that, put it in the chat box and we'll come to it. Is there anything finally, Georgina, you'd like to kind of add that you think, oh, I forgot to say that?
The only other thing, which you were saying about like grandparents or other people that are looking after your children, is often they're feeling the same way you feel. Like they probably put a bit of front on and think that like they're saying that they know what they're going to do and they've got these brilliant ideas, but they're probably also feeling a little a little bit nervous or a little bit like, oh, I don't know what I'm going to do. So giving them some ideas, you might feel like you're offending them, but you're probably not. Just so you could be like, oh, and often it's easier to give ideas from somebody else, like the book or like a website or something like that, and say, oh, I've been looking at this. There's some ideas of things that I know my child would enjoy doing. What have you thought about doing these with them? Can be a nice, easy way to get around it, because it can be a little bit worrying if you know somebody else is looking after your child and you're thinking, are they going to be doing activities that they enjoy, or is it going to become a difficult time? So yeah, that can be one. And I've just seen on the chat someone's asked about where you can find the books. They're on Amazon is probably the best place to find them. Do you want me to put the links in, Lynn?
Kirsten, you'll put a link, won't you? Kirsten will find it and put the link on.
But they're in Waterstones and WH Smith's and all of the other bookshops online, so you can find
that must be so nice when you go into a shop and think, oh, that's my book. Yeah, oh my gosh, I can't believe how quick this hour has gone. Feel free to get in touch with Georgina herself through her website, because again, there's lots of great stuff on there and she's very approachable. And I just want to thank everybody for coming. Just finally, if you feel like you need a present for your teachers, I'm going to do a bit of self-promotion here. And that's that I've written 2 books this year about supporting autistic children in primary, the yellow one, and in secondary. And they are books with loads and loads of practical stuff. But my most proud thing I have about this is that, sorry, I'm not talking in a real sentence there. The thing I'm most proud about is the fact that children have contributed to these books. They've told me what it's like about school, and we've put that in the books. And then from that, I've been able to kind of hopefully advise teaching staff, what can you do to support them in the school. So yeah, it is self-promotion. But, Georgina and I would spend a lot of time trying our best to just help people, with families and children who have additional needs. And we love the fact that as parents, you are amazing, you really know your children, and we love working with you. So thanks for coming today. Thanks for if you're listening on the recording, you can still get in touch if you have any questions. And Georgina, thank you so much. Can't believe how quick this hour has gone. And I hope that people are really excited now and keen to go away and just have a calm, interesting, playful summer. Wouldn't that be great?
Without any guilt as well.
Exactly. Yeah. And don't worry about the iPad. That's part of play as well. So fabulous. And any teachers, any parents who, give yourself a bit of a chance to play as well. As adults, we forget that we can play too. That's okay. Have fun. Roll in a muddy puddle, climb a tree, find some wildlife that you love, do some papier-mâché. Used to do that a lot with my kids. And there's one time where my son brought me 4 empty toilet rolls and said, can we make a war elephant? And so we found a way of doing that. And I would say, just as a papier-mâché thing, I found that kitchen towel is better than paper for making papier-mâché. So PVA glue with water and kitchen towel, really good. But that's many years of making war elephants. He played with that for years. Brilliant. Okay. Yeah. Somebody's saying here that Helen's saying he enjoyed your podcasts.
Oh, thank you.
And they're still available, aren't they?
Yeah, there's a whole back catalog. I think there's like 21 episodes you can listen to the podcast now.
And I'm still working my way through them all. They're great. So thanks for that. So is there anything else that you do that you want to let people know that you do? So you've got your website, you've got your YouTube videos, you've got your podcasts that you do with.
Yeah, I think that's about it. Really. So yeah, there's the podcast called Sending the Experts. You can find that on like any podcast provider or on YouTube, and that's lots of like experts, either experts in the fact that they've got lived experience of having special education needs and disabilities. I try to mix it up with people who have lived experience, the real experts, and people who are like experts in special education needs. So we've got like one on autistic girls, we've got one on PDA. There's like lots of different topics that we go to, and I just get to have a chat with somebody and they tell me loads of interesting stuff. It's great CPD for people. So that one's a lovely one to look at. And I'll just show my books one more time if that's all right. There's my 2 books, 100 Ways Your Child Can Learn Through Play and How to Boost Reading and Writing Through Play. And that one is particularly useful for children who are starting to learn to read and write or have learnt their phonics, but then you feel like they're stalling and you don't know how to get them to put pen to paper. I know that can be an issue over the summer holidays. You're thinking you don't want them to stop doing any reading or writing over the summer, and you're thinking, how on earth are you going to get them to do it? I've had a few parents get in touch with me this week about how they're going to do that. And it's basically using play as your way in. So using play-based activities, whatever they want to be doing as well, but then just weaving in a little bit of literacy skills through their play. So one example could be if they're, again, dinosaurs. I don't know why dinosaurs are in my mind today, but if they're really into dinosaurs, you could help them set up a dinosaur museum in their bedroom, and then they've got to write the little signs, or they've got to do a little bit of reading from the library about different types of dinosaurs. So you're just trying to find like really sneaky ways of getting a bit of literacy still in during the summer holidays. So it's still fun, they're still enjoying it, but you're giving them, keeping that literacy going over the summer. So yeah, I would recommend that one. It's good for dyslexia as well in particular. I tried to make it so it helps children who are dyslexic.
That's brilliant. And I think that, that would really help a lot of parents who are worried about that gap of 6 weeks and going back to school and not being ready for it. So, or losing some of their knowledge. So it's brilliant. Thank you.
No worries.
It is. We will have to finish sadly because we've had a great time. I think we could have carried on, but thank you so much, Georgina. And thank you for everybody who's come along and who will listen to this. And have a lovely summer, everybody. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.